Welcome to the new studio. $20K, 1 month, 1 camera operator, me. Does every month look like that? Sadly not. I'd be recording this from my yacht if it did, but it is possible. So for now, I'm here in my new garage studio, talking you through exactly how that high watermark happened and what lessons I took from it. This isn't supposed to be a flex or a boast, and I'm certainly not some kind of solopreneur guru, but if you're curious about how on earth a working videographer can actually reach 20K in a single month with no staff, no real studio overheads to mention, and no viral smash hit, this one's for you. First off, let's be clear, 20K is not a typical month for me. My average month is much closer to 5K. That's sustainable, consistent, enough to live well, invest in gear, and build a bit of a buffer. But the 20K month happened when a lot of things came together. Not luck exactly, more the result of long-term client relationships, careful scheduling, and a few strategic yeses. If you're chasing the dream of big pay months, it's worth knowing exactly what they look like behind the scenes. They're a little bit messy, they can be a bit exhausting, and in my case I found that they rarely come from one massive job, but rather from wrapping multiple medium-sized jobs at the same time. So with that in mind, here's what made up my 20K month. 3 main jobs made up the bulk of it. Number 1, a Shepherd's Hut manufacturing showcase, 1-day shoot, local, shot on the FX6. Number 2, an architectural interiors project, multi-day shoot, overseas, daytime only access to the property, tight turnaround, huge fun, shot on the Komodo X. And project 3 was a product campaign for a candle brand. Small team, 2-day shoot, also shot on the Komodo. On top of those big projects, there was also my usual, pretty casual lifestyle retainer brief that brings in a little bit of extra money each month. So all told, it wasn't one 20K job, it was several overlapping projects that all wrapped, or at least invoiced, within the same 30-day window. And the best thing is, apart from the money obviously, it mostly didn't even really feel like I was having a 20K month from a workload point of view. One of the things all these projects had in common, I brought more than just the camera. Adding value is the biggest lever you've got as a solo shooter. Sometimes that means helping shape the creative, other times it's about logistics, locations, lighting, editing style, or even casting. If you can be the person who solves the problems instead of creating them, you're already in the top 10%. Take the Shepherd's Hut shoot. The client is one of those quietly ultra successful types. His main business is reasonably mundane, but that affords him a stable full of supercars, an amateur race team, and this, a capital-intensive side project making Shepherd's Huts because he just always liked them. He understandably had his hands pretty full throughout the process though, so I was able to reduce his workload by managing the whole project, from styling, props, deliverables, contact and communication with the web dev team. That all made his life so much easier, and I over-delivered on our agreement. That doesn't just feel good, it gets you rehired, and crucially, it justifies your rates. A producer I work with semi-regularly told me she only calls one of 2 shooters without hesitation, not because of image quality, but because she knows they'll show up on time, stay calm when something goes wrong, and get what's needed without fuss. If you can provide that level of reliability, that will put you head and shoulders above 90% of your competitors. It also means you get recommended, quietly, consistently, and that's how you get repeat business. Here's a potentially controversial one. I lean into scope creep. Not always, but when there's a client I value or a shoot I believe in, I'm inclined to go a little above and beyond. Maybe I shoot longer or deliver extra cut downs, or I'll even throw in a few stills. Why? Because that generosity, when it's on your terms, builds loyalty, and it turns a 2K job into a 10K relationship over time. Of course, if a client tries to demand extras without paying for them, that's a bit of a different story, but voluntary over-delivery, when it's appropriate, that's how you build a reputation. And even though the client is ultimately paying for it, for them, it can definitely feel like they're getting a lot more than they initially hoped for out of a project, which is a big win. I used to agonize over day rates, edit fees, licensing structures, usage tiers, and honestly, I'm sure that has its place in big commercial environments, but for the kind of work I do now, simple pricing has won the day. Most of my clients don't want an itemized breakdown. They want a number that feels fair and results they love. So I've streamlined the way I price. Usually it's an easy to comprehend day rate that includes any kit or tools I might reasonably be expected to use. And usually I give the client an estimate of a price range I expect the total project to be within, based on the brief and how many deliverables are required. When the brief is clear, the estimates are pretty tight, And when it's a bit more vague, so too is my estimate. This approach reduces friction, closes deals faster, and the client always has a real grasp on the budget implications of any alterations to the brief. 20k is a lot of money, and I was able to keep it that way, instead of letting it get devoured by overheads. That's mainly because I run an entirely lean operation. I don't rent studio space, I don't employ staff, I own all my kit outright rather than have any of it on finance. I travel as efficiently as possible. I'm often the producer, the casting agent, the cam op, obviously the sound guy, the editor. Could I make more by scaling up and hiring? Possibly. But I used to run a hospitality business with 50 staff. I've done the employee game, and right now I love the nimbleness of staying small. That doesn't mean doing everything alone. In fact, a possible way I might scale in the future is just by bringing in more freelance collaborators. I'm just not super inclined to build a company with payroll and overheads again. My earliest paid jobs didn't come from some carefully thought out plan, they came from trust. In fact, every job that contributed to my 20k month came from an existing client or someone who'd seen earlier work and liked what they saw. That kind of relationship isn't built overnight, it's earned slowly and often invisibly. A big part of that is sharing what you're working on, not with a master plan in mind, but just because you're proud of it, or excited about it, or because you want to get better. That openness creates surface area for opportunities to find you, and that builds trust, and trust ultimately leads to jobs. Retainers are great, but definitely rare. Most of the stability I've found now doesn't come from signed contracts, but it comes from being someone people trust. One client told me she keeps hiring me because she doesn't have to explain things twice. Another said it's because I show up with the gear I said I would, and they noticed I always back up the footage on the same day. And these sound like tiny things, but they really help to build your brand. Not the brand you show online, but the one that people talk about privately. I also think that my work as a volunteer helm on the lifeboat creeps in a bit too. Being calm under pressure, thinking strategically, and anticipating problems before they happen. These skills absolutely transfer to filmmaking, which all helps to build trust, and like I said, that trust leads to jobs. So, would I like every month to look like that? Honestly, yes. Hell yes. Well, also maybe not. The 20k month was brilliant, and though I said at the top it mostly didn't feel like it was a huge workload, I was definitely editing a lot. Too much screen time for sure. And yet, making that kind of money is exciting. I now have a high watermark I know I can hit again. If you're aiming for a month like that, or a year that averages close, I hope some of this has helped. You don't need to chase big agencies, you don't need to run a team, just be good, be consistent, be easy to work with, add value, say yes to the right things, share your work, and keep going. And if you want to see some of the personal projects that kept me motivated between gigs, Film Your Life is a good episode to revisit. Or check out the Fuji X100V Reflective, a love letter to cameras that don't feel like work. But if today's episode resonated, give it a like and consider subscribing. There's more episodes coming weekly. And if you want to see what I'm working on in real time or just want to say hi, come and find me on Instagram. Thanks for watching.